I would like to welcome you on behalf of my director, Milorad Kojic, and myself. We are here today because of the Remembrance Day, 22nd April, related to genocide on Serbs in independent state of Croatia, 1941-1945. My name is Dusan Pavlovic, and I run the Department for Research, Documentation and Memorialization at the Republic Center for Research of World War Crimes and Tracing Missing Persons of the Government of Republika Srpska. At the same time, I'm the head of the Cultural Remembrance Coordinated Team of the Republic of Srpska. The Republic Center, the institution I work in, among other professional and expert affairs, is responsible at the level of the Republic of Srpska for defining, proposing, and coordinating basic aspects of remembrance policies, memorialization, cultural remembrance, and memory. That means we are engaged as well in researching and building a culture of remembrance for the victims of genocide in the independent state of Croatia. In fact, there was a triple genocide in the independent state of Croatia on Serbs, Jews, and Roma and Sinti. As you know, Serbs were the primary victim of genocide in the pro-Nazi independent state of Croatia during World War II. About 2 million Serbs in the independent state of Croatia were criminalized and targeted for destruction. Genocide in the independent state of Croatia was planned and implemented through the expulsion of 1/3 of Serbs, the conversion to Roman Catholicism of 1/3, and the killing of 1/3. Out of the targeted about 2 million Serbs, the independent state of Croatia managed to encompass 1.3 to 1.4 million victims of the genocide through its policies and actions. So today, eminent scholars, Professor TANASKOVIC and Professor LATINOVIC, will share with us important facts about the genocide on Serbs in independent state of Croatia and why we need to bear witness about it. At the end of their presentations, if any of you present here would like to address us with a short comment for a minute or two, we will be pleased to hear it. Also, you can share with us your impressions and suggestions through written comments. So I'm going to kindly ask Professor Latinovic, head of the Contemporary National History Department at the University of Banja Luka, to present the most important facts about today's topic. Professor Latinovic, please take a word.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Banja Luka, the capital of the Republic of Srpska. My name is Goran Latinovic. I have a PhD in history and I work as an associate professor at the University of Banja Luka, where I teach several courses on contemporary history of Serbs. I would like to present you some of the basic facts of the genocide against Serbs in the independent state of Croatia from 1941 to 1945. The independent state of Croatia was proclaimed on 10th of April 1941 during the war between Germany and its allies against the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. It encompassed the entire territory of nowadays Bosnia and Herzegovina, most of nowadays Croatia, and a part of Serbia. The ideological basis of the independent state of Croatia and its policy of genocide against Serbs was made of the Croatian right wing and the teaching of the Roman Catholic Church. The ideology of the annihilation of Serbs on a vast territory that was considered in Croatian right wing and Roman Catholic circles as the Croatian historical territory took shape in the second half of the 19th century. Serbs were considered invaders to Croatian historical territories where there could be no other political or constitutional people but Croats. At the same time, Serbs were accused of being a tool in the hands of Austrians and Hungarians against Croats, as well as a tool of the so-called Great Serbian ideology and politics, which, as Orthodox Christians and members of the Byzantine cultural circle, represented a foreign body in Croatian Roman Catholic territory and therefore were supposed to disappear from it. The independent state of Croatia pursued the policy of genocide against Serbs in the territory it encompassed in April 1941, and the leader of that policy was the foremost political factor in Croatia, the Ustasha movement. Its first nucleus was founded in Italy, in Bovegno near Brescia, in the second half of 1931. The Ustasha, Croatian Revolutionary Organization, developed a constitution in 1932, with the basic program principle being the creation of a completely independent Croatian state throughout the national and historical territory, whereby Serbs were to be thrown out of Croatian sacred ground by force and deadly weapons. In that spirit, the Ustasha paper published in 1932 that whatever drinks the blood of the Croatian people should be slaughtered, so that never again such evil shall appear amidst the Croatian environment. The following year, in the same paper, Croatian writer Mile Budak published a poem in which it was pointed out that dogs should be chased away across the Drina River. The leader of the Ustasha movement, Ante Pavelić, while staying in the Italian city of Siena from October 1934 until March of 1937, studied the Turkish massacre of Armenians, and based on that, he made plans for the annihilation of Serbs in the future Croatia, which he developed with his associates in Lipari near Sicily. The realization of such plan was supposed to create a great Croatian state, nationally and religiously homogeneous, on the territory of which there were not to be any Serbs. At the end of 1940, the Ustasha political program was published, emphasizing the idea of an ethnically pure Croatian region. According to the data of the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs from May 1941, in the independent state of Croatia, out of about 6,300,000 inhabitants, there were about 1,925,000 Orthodox Serbs, and they made up over 30% of its population. The German plenipotentiary general in Zagreb, Glez von Horstenau, wrote that the Croatian poglavnik, or leader president, Ante Pavelić, already in April 1941, intended to kill 1,800,000 Orthodox Serbs at any cost and by all means. At the beginning of June 1941, German Führer Adolf Hitler told Croatian poglavnik Ante Pavelić that if the Croatian state wanted to last, it must pursue an intolerant national policy for at least 50 years. At the beginning of July 1941, a report arrived in Berlin from the representatives of the intelligence service of the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in which it was stated that wide circles believed that Serbs had no place in Croatia. Ante Pavelić stated in August 1941 that there were not many real Serbs in the independent state of Croatia, and that they were in fact Croats of the Serbian Orthodox religion and Vlachs, emphasizing that the issue would be resolved in the best, most convenient way by banishing 250,000 Serbs to Serbia, among other things. Besides the Croatian poglavnik, other high-ranking officials of the Croatian state also spoke or wrote openly about the way to resolve the Serbian question. Thus, at the end of April 1941, Croatian minister Mile Budak stated, "One part of the Serbs will be killed, the other will be expelled, and the remaining will be converted to the Catholic religion and thus assimilated to Croats." In mid-June 1941, he stated, "If anyone is a Serb, they have Serbia, and that is their homeland." At the end of the same month, Budak wrote down as follows, As for the Serbs who live here, they are not Serbs, but incomers from the East who were brought by the Turks as bag bearers and other servants. They are only united with the Orthodox Church, and we have not been able to assimilate them. However, they should know that our motto is either bow down or be removed. At the beginning of May 1941, Croatian minister Milovan Žanić said, "I speak openly, this state, this homeland of ours, must be Croatian and no one else's. And that's why those who came here, they should leave. This country must be a country of Croats, and there are no methods that we, as Ustašas, will not use to make this country Croatian and cleanse it of Serbs. We do not hide it. It is the policy of this state, and when we are done, we shall do what is written in the Ustaša principles." At the beginning of May 1941, Croatian minister Mirko Puk stated, "There are no means that we as Ustašas would not use to cleanse this country of Serbs." He also said as follows, "Serbs invaded our areas together with the Turkish hordes as robbers, scum, and excrement of the Balkans. We cannot allow two nations to rule our country. There is one God and one ruling people, and that is the Croatian people. Let those who came to our homeland 200-300 years ago return to where they came from." At the end of July 1941, Croatian minister Mladen Lorković said, "The Ustaša movement insists on an energetic solution to the Serbian problem in Croatia. Those who are situated on the other side of the Sava and Drina rivers are shouting that we are intolerant and that we are treating Serbs in an inhuman way. Our response to everyone is that it is the duty of the Croatian government to act in such a way as to have Croatia belong only to Croats. It is our duty to silence forever those elements that most contributed to Croatian falling under the Serbian rule in 1918. In one word, we must exterminate Serbs in Croatia." The reason why Serbs had to be exterminated in the independent state of Croatia was explained by Lorković in September 1942. "The Croatian state cannot exist if 1,800,000 Serbs live in it, and if we have a strong Serbian state behind our backs, which would always reach our territories and pose an endless threat to us. Therefore, we are trying to make Serbs disappear from our land, and a lot has already been done in that direction." In this spirit, the legal basis for the implementation of genocidal policy was created. Legal provision for the defense of the people and the state, passed 7 days after the proclamation of the independent state of Croatia, stipulated that anyone who did or who had already done anything against the interests of the Croatian people and the independent state of Croatia was a traitor with a death sentence as a penalty. During 1941, as a measure of denationalization of Serbs, legal provisions banned the Cyrillic alphabet and abolished the name Serbian Orthodox religion, instead of which the name Greek Eastern religion was imposed, which meant that Orthodox Serbs were to be called Greek Easterners. In some areas of the independent state of Croatia, Serbs had to wear a white ribbon on their left arm with the Latin inscription Pravoslavac, Orthodox. The mass killing of Serbs in the independent state of Croatia began as early as in April 1941. The genocide over Serbs destroyed all moral ties that make one society a human community. The command of the Italian Second Army reported in June 1941 that the Croatian ultranationalism, which is losing all sense of proportion, has established a regime of violence and terror, the intensity of which is constantly increasing. The political struggle is inspired by religious struggle and is integrated in it. This Croatian political religious struggle is truly taking on wild aspects. In that, the Ustašas are getting involved in revenge and repression that can only be compared to the most obscure times of the Middle Ages. Gliss von Horstenau concluded that behind the Croatian determination to get rid of the Serbs as people, once and for all, there is a strong and devilishly skillfully fueled religious intolerance, the constant effort of the Catholic Church to suppress and destroy schismatics. Some of the notorious places of execution of Serbs were in Western Bosnia, Garavice near Bihać, Šušnjar near Sanski Most, and villages of Drakulić, Šargovac, and Motike near Banja Luka. In Herzegovina, Prebilovci near Čapljina, and in eastern Bosnia, Stari Brod near Višegrad. Ustašas also used Orthodox churches as places of mass crimes, such as the church in Glina in nowadays Croatia. Victims were thrown down, dead or alive, in several deep pits, mostly in Herzegovina and Lika regions. There were 26 concentration camps and camps for extermination of Serbs in the independent state of Croatia. The camp systems, Jadovno, Gospić, Pag, and especially Jasenovac, were the most notorious. Managers of the Jasenovac system spoke about unlimited capacity of the camp due to the fact that they were perpetrating mass killings during the entire period of the war. The independent state of Croatia was the only country during the Second World War which had specialized camps for children who were separated from their parents, killed or educated in a Croatian spirit. The number of Serbs killed in the genocide, which was perpetrated against them by the independent state of Croatia from 1941 to 1945, has never been established. In a Gestapo report dated 17 February 1942, compiled for Heinrich Himmler, it was stated that Croats killed about 300,000 Serbs, and that because of these crimes, many Serbs fled to Serbia. British official George William Randall asked whether Serbs can forget the 600,000 killed by Croats. Major General Ernst Fick reported to Himmler on 16th March 1944 that the Ustašas had taken 600,000 to 700,000 of politically different people to camps and slaughtered them in the Balkan Way. Hermann Neubacher, Hitler's special envoy for the Balkans, in his memoirs originally published in Germany in 1957, estimated, based on reports that reached him, that the number of innocent, unarmed, slaughtered Serbs is about 750,000. Therefore, several 100,000 Serbs were killed in the independent state of Croatia, including a large number of children, whilst the sadism and the cruelty with which people were killed shocked the Nazi commanders, who wrote about it with contempt. And with the exception of the German occupation authorities in Eastern Europe, Croatian regime set up the largest camps on the continent. And months before the Wannsee conference in January 1942, it began its own Holocaust policy. In an effort to avoid murder and persecution, Serbs began to apply for the conversion to Roman Catholicism, hoping that baptism would save their lives. For this purpose, at the end of October 1941, a religious department was established within the Croatian government, which issued instructions on the conversion to Roman Catholicism. The number of Catholicized Serbs has not been determined, although it is estimated that during 1941 and 1942, around 240,000 Serbs were forced to convert to Roman Catholic Church. Nonetheless, it was established that many those Catholicized Serbs were subsequently killed with the explanation that their souls were saved by conversion, but not their bodies. Apart from killing and converting to Roman Catholicism, apart from Croatization, the Croatian authorities intended to solve the Serbian question also by banishing Serbs from the independent state of Croatia. German data show that by the end of July 1941, there were about 137,000 banished and refugee Serbs from Croatia in the occupied Serbia. However, since not all expelled and refugee Serbs were reported to the German occupation authorities, their number was estimated at around 180,000. According to various estimates, between 250,000 and 340,000 Serbs were expelled or escaped from the independent state of Croatia during the Second World War. Vjekoslav Vrančić, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the independent state of Croatia, recalled that an uncontrolled number of Serbs were banished to Serbia across the Drina River. After the Second World War, officials of the Roman Catholic Church in Yugoslavia did not speak publicly about the genocide against Serbs in the independent state of Croatia, especially about the role of the Roman Catholic priests of Croatian nationality. The first to speak quite openly about it was the bishop from Banja Luka of German origin, Alfred Pichler, who said in a Christmas message in 1963 the following: "In the last war in this country, our brothers of the Orthodox religion died because they were Orthodox. Those who killed them had a Catholic baptism certificate in their pockets. They were called Catholics. These Christians killed other people, also Christians, because they were not Croats and Catholics. We painfully acknowledge this terrible delusion of those people who had gone astray, and we beg our brothers of Orthodox religion to forgive just as the Christ forgave everyone." However, in the contemporary Croatian historiography, there is a revisionist movement whose representatives deny that crimes were ever committed from 1941 to 1945 in the independent state of Croatia, let alone a genocide against Serbs, Jews, and Roma, in an effort to rehabilitate the independent state of Croatia. They are not marginal groups, but are employees or associates of some of the main Croatian scientists and education institutions and journals. Rarely has anyone, as Croatian revisionists, gone so far in the banalization of evil and trivialization of crime as those who are devoted to that. Nevertheless, the efforts of Croatian revisionists to diminish or completely deny the crime of the independent state of Croatia produced the opposite effect. They drew the attention of the world's scientific community to the genocide against Serbs, Jews, and Roma in the independent state of Croatia, which was previously considered a lesser-known genocide, which caused relatively limited attention of Western historiography. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Latinovic, for your excellent lecture and presentation of the most important facts about genocide of Serbs in the independent state of Croatia. We will just speak probably more about it later on. Now, I would like to ask eminent scholar and Professor Darko Tanaskovic to take a word and share with us why he thinks it's important to bear witness about genocide on Serbs nowadays. Professor Tanaskovic, please take a word.
Thank you. Well, I thank very much Professor Latinovic for his excellent lecture. And so I will not speak very much about the genocide in Croatia in itself, because I think practically it's not needed. It's obvious what happened then. So I will speak more about the importance of witnessing in general, especially witnessing to history. So as I call this concept of bearing testimony for what happened in the past. When speaking on the subject of witnessing, we should first define and clarify the conceptual framework of our discourse. What are witnesses to history? By the term witness to history, we designate individuals who give testimony of a past event in a public space or in the specially organized interview. Unlike the juridical witness, it is impossible to define an archetypal case and profile of the witness to history, which has broader semantic content. This is due to the fact that, unlike the juridical witness, the witness to history does not need to fulfill a clear judiciary function. Although in the case of witnessing about the facts that occurred during the wars on the territory of former Yugoslavia during 20th century, the facts that occurred, and especially in the civil war in Croatia and Bosnia-Herzegovina, the roles of juridical witness and the witness to history are often interrelated, having in mind the trials organized by the International Tribunal for War Crimes, as well as the local courts and the trials not organized that should be organized. The function of witness to history are defined by the setting in which the individual witnesses appear as providers of historically relevant information in the role to reinforce or deny the authenticity of other witnesses' statements as a contribution to moral education, or most frequently as a combination of mentioned and similar purposes. The multiplicity of functions performed by witnesses to history leads, second, to a proliferation of individuals who could potentially perform the role of a witness to history. The individuals who would never be considered for the role of juridical witness can become witness to history. This is very important to know and to underline, because some people would never have an idea to which extent their testimony could be important and precious for understanding of the past, because they don't consider themselves as possible witnesses. Well, I insist on the fact that almost everybody who has certain remembrance of the past or certain connection to those facts could be potentially a very useful and precious witness. Witnesses to history can be victims, perpetrators, or bystanders, members of the population who witnessed crime but did not intervene. They can have held a leading position or merely have observed certain events. All those are interesting. They can have been active or passive, willingly or unwillingly involved. Nevertheless, while being diverse, witnesses to history, if honestly included and not tendentiously selected, are all in principle very useful in the attempt to bring our perception of the past as close as possible to what I would call its factual reality, intentionally avoiding the common and almost generalized concept of truth. Why I'm doing so? Well, it is a philosophical dilemma, but I won't enter in those kind of deliberations. I would say only that because the truth has in our times become highly relativized concept. Truth is a true, in principle, a true statement that is in accordance with reality. It means a fact of belief that is accepted as true. However, reality is a thing that exists or existed in fact. Then the reality existed, and we have some ideas about that reality. Well, what we heard from our distinguished colleague LATINOVIC, if there is a case where reality and the truth about that reality coincide or overlap fully, that is the genocide of the Serbs. But still we see that there are attempts, and very serious attempts, to deny it, to diminish it, or to completely eliminate it from any kind of narrative about the Second World War. As we are now living in the time of narratives, which became more important than facts, and in some post-modern trends in historical science, in historiography, they speak more about narratives than what happened. So, truth is supposed to be in accordance with reality, but as we see, it is not. The human truth is by definition subjective in nature, the product of man's mind, based on certain perception of reality, and thus, and this perception is determined by many factors, including ideological ones. Obviously, I am not speaking here about the absolute truth, unreachable for man in principle, the God's truth. But we are speaking about our human reachable truth, about what happened during the 20th century wars on the Yugoslav soil. There are at least 6 different and even confronted national collective truths. Because of that, I firmly believe that any idea of having in possession the whole and complete truth about the facts that occurred during these wars is dangerously fallacious. What we should do is to make our, in this case, Serbian truth, in which I believe fully, as much as possible closest to factual reality, and in that endeavor, our indispensable collaborators are the witnesses to history. I remember now the book, very important but not very much known book, of a famous Orientalist and historian Bernard Lewis, written and published in 1974. The book bears the title History Remembered, Recovered, and Invented. In that important theoretical book and study, Bernard Lewis speaks about remembered history. The remembered history is the collective memory of a community or nation or other entity of what is considered to remember as significant, both as reality and symbol. Then we have the recovered reality. I will just to be very brief. It is the forgotten, the lost history recovered by academic scholarship. This is the history that we consider to be this based on facts as on a common sense. And then third, and for us the most important history, is so-called invented history. And Bernard Lewis says this is the history for purpose. and new purpose differing from previous purpose or previous purposes. Well, invented history is at the same time, especially in our case, the other name, the synonym of revisionism, and the colleague Latinovic already mentioned this stream of revisionistic history that is now at work with the falsifications of the truth. We have now the revisionism on a large scale. We have even the neo-Nazis' conceptions of revising completely what happened in the Second World War. It would have seemed absolutely incredible, impossible some 15 or 20 years ago. But now we have really fantastic projections of this revisionism on the Second World War. Although I repeat, if there is an overlapping of factual history with truth and reality, we have that in the case of Holocaust, in the case of genocide of Serbs in Croatia, which is practically, nevertheless, how we name it, what name we take, it is the part of the Holocaust. And I'm very astonished to see that there are some seemingly scientific attempts to create new names for the genocide of the Serbs in Croatia, even in Serbian milieu. Our task then is now, as Louis said, now to rediscover the facts of the past that have been covered by the thick layer of tendentiously invented history, functionally and mostly in key with the overall anti-Serbian design in all spheres. The precious role of witnesses and their testimonies on the genocide of Serbs in the so-called independent state of Croatia is really very important in order to rediscover, as I said, I reiterate it now, to rediscover the facts that have been now or trying to be covered by this thick layer of lies, forgeries, and the fake history. Everybody in my mind who knows or remembers something directly or indirectly about these tragic events should be ready to give his own contribution, his testimony in this important national and human task. And I hope that in the future we will successfully fight against what now has become the truth of revisionism of our days. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Professor Tanaskovic. It was more than important to hear your presentation and opinion about this important topic, especially in the context of distortion of history that you and Professor Latinovic mentioned. And of course, this is one of the also very, very important reasons why we supposed to bear witness and keep reminding all of us what happened on different levels, of course, on scientific level, but also on personal level throughout personal stories. If I may just before maybe some other present people, if they would like to ask something or make a comment, I would like to ask Professor Latinovic if it's possible for him, just for the sake of awareness of some people abroad, to share with us what's been done within the last 6-7 years in the Republika Srpska on institutional level about cultural remembrance, especially in history and Serbian language and literature. I think it's important for people abroad to be aware of it, because very often when I speak with people from abroad, it seems like they have no clue that some important steps were taken towards cultural remembrance on institutional level. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Tanaskovic. Thank you, Mr. Pavlovic. Well, I would like just to inform you that we had a really sad situation as for history textbooks for elementary and secondary education in the Republic of Srpska. That was inherited of some previous time of socialist Yugoslavia. Even our teachers for elementary and secondary level of education were not quite familiar with some facts about genocide against Serbs in the independent state of Croatia. So my colleague, Professor Dragiša Vasić, and I proposed a notion in 2016 to rewrite not only history textbooks, but also programs for elementary and secondary education, because textbooks are written, they are based on the programs, and we managed to do many of those things in a very positive manner. During the same period in 2016-2017, we had a seminar for hundreds of teachers for secondary and elementary schools in the Republic of Srpska. Mr. Pavlovic was one of the participants. Mr. Lozo, also present here, historian, Nikola Ožegović, Dragoslav Ilić. I hope I did not forget any of our colleagues, and we held approximately 10 seminars from history of the Holocaust, genocide against Serbs in the independent state of Croatia, and genocide against Roma during the Second World War. It was very well attended. Most of those our colleagues from educational system of Republic of Srpska were really and sincerely pleased with the possibility that finally they can hear something more about it. And the third element of our improvement regarding culture of remembrance is a new program that we have at Faculty of Philosophy of the University of Banja Luka, Department of History, where my colleagues that I have already mentioned, Vasić and Ožegović, together with myself, are working really hard to establish some new methods of teaching genocide against Serbs in the independent state of Croatia as the most important crime that Croatian regime committed during the Second World War. So if we take a look on the situation before all those initiatives, so some 6, 7, or 8, 10 years ago, and if we take a look at this moment, although I must say we have much more to do, and I hope in next few years we will show a new great improvement in this area, then we can all be very, very satisfied. Unfortunately, I'm not quite satisfied, I must say it, with the way how those facts about the independent state of Croatia and the 3 genocides that it committed against Serbs, against Jews, and against Roma are presented in Serbia. If you just take a look in some, not all, but some of the history textbooks, still you will have difficulty to find definition of genocide of that what happened to Serbs in the independent state of Croatia. which is really sad. But I also hope when we finish the small group of our historians here in mostly Banja Luka, when we finish our job in rewriting programs and history textbooks in the Republic of Srpska, that can be a good model for Serbia, so that we, as people, although divided in several countries, with the spiritual unification that we, cultural unification that we feel, that we will finally be able to learn and teach history of the Second World War and those tragic topics in a correct manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Latinovic. I just really think it is very much important to share with everyone what happened. Especially, I would just add, basically that project was it was kind of interinstitutional project. Ministry of Education and Culture, Pedagogical Institute of Republika Srpska, Philosophical Faculty of University of Banja Luka, our center, Public Center for Research of War, and I don't know whom else, I think, were involved in this project. And it's very important to stress out, like we just shown it was possible to do it, because not many people believed at that time it was possible to do it, because already I would say some organizations from abroad entered our educational system, and they were already trying to change our curriculum and to teach about Second World War and 90s wars according to Ferdinand Haig or something like that. So it was very important historical fact, I would say, now already in Republika Srpska. So yeah, I hope we will be in situation in a year or two to help our brothers in Serbia. Now I would like to ask if anyone of you would like to, our dear guests, say something, ask professors, or just make a comment. You are more than welcome. Maybe Mr. Miloš Rastović from US would like to say something about his organization or anything.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlović. My name is, as Dusan says, Miloš Rastović, and I work for the Serb National Federation in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's the oldest Serbian American organization in the United States since 1901. The main mission of this organization is to perpetuate Serbian culture and tradition, and that's what we are doing more than 100 years. We also publish American Serbobran from 1906, and that's the oldest Serbian continuously published newspaper, at least here in American continent. And I want to add something what we as a member of the Serbian American diaspora did in regards to Jasenovac. In November 2019, our organization, in cooperation with the Office of Republic of Srpska in Washington, D.C., and National University Library of Republic of Srpska in Banja Luka, we organized in United States Congress exhibition dedicated to Jasenovac. That exhibition was a couple of days that all members of Congress and also diplomats were able to see that exhibition. And also we had a lecture about Jasenovac, and we invited many members of Congress and Senate, diplomats, and the media. Russia Today taped all events and show on Russia Today. It was all segment about that event and all genocide that's happened during the World War II in the former Yugoslavia. And that's something that we as a members of the Serbian American diaspora try to contribute it to this. And also this exhibition of the National University Library of Republic of Srpska. That exhibition was 2 months ago in our churches in Las Vegas and Phoenix, Arizona. And what we organize now, that exhibition will go to every church in the Eastern American diocese. And after that, we go to the Midwestern and West diocese. That's the way how many Serbian Americans who are not aware what happened during the World War II, they will hear and learn more about Jasenovac and everything what happened. And I want to ask our speakers, and I'm very honored that I have opportunity to listen to them and these excellent lectures that they delivered. My question is, what, first of all, Serbian government, what they did, this is more for Dr. Tanaskovic, because I think that he's more familiar with what government of Republic of Serbia did to more present what really happened in Jasenovac and all genocide to the world, especially in regards to these revisions. And also that's the same for the government of Republic of Srpska, how much they present to the world what's really happened. And I think that would be a very nice idea if there is some monument in Belgrade, at least I'm not aware, to dedicate to all our victims, including Jasenovac, that every foreign official, when it comes to our country, can visit that place before any conversation, like something like in Israel. Probably it doesn't look realistic for me in these circumstances in our country. Thank you.
Well, should I reply to that? Well, no, first of all, I'm a retired professor of the university. I don't have any special relations to the government of Serbia. And especially, I was not prepared to give you the answer in, so to say, factual manner. So what has been done? What I can say is that I share completely the judgment by our colleague, my colleague Goran Latinovic, who said that in Serbia generally, enough hasn't been done yet in that respect. Even I think that what should have been done and could have been done until now haven't been done enough. There are different reasons for each. It doesn't mean that nothing has been done. There are things that I don't have really, no the list, no, I'm never working on it, so that I can't say what precisely was done, than any statistic or two sites and events and so on. But the problem is that in Serbia, there are still very strong relicts of so-called Yugoslavism. Well, we are fighting still in our mind, collectively speaking, with this heritage of the Yugoslav concept of fraternity and brotherhood and so on. And some people now ideologically, for different purposes, they're not naive, and they are by any means are not at the knowledge what happened in the Croatia, are using this type of, as I said, the heritage and still this picture, which is completely different from facts, as I insisted on facts and don't speak about truth, to create now their new truth, which is based that you live in the United States of America on the idea of a global free world of human rights and of the new kind of brotherhood, where the speaking about the facts from the Second World War would harm this ideological and ideal perception that we should embrace now again. So we hadn't enough time, I think, and unfortunately the Serbs generally as a nation, they never had enough time in history to mature, in the sense that between well, just to say the Second World War and the communist regime, which for the obvious purposes tried to diminish this aspect of the war and the civil war, the atrocities committed by the independent state of Croatia. And now the new era in which we didn't have enough time to develop a real national conscience and a narrative about what happened, and to be again, let us say, to rebuild our national conscience and identity, and then to work in function of that in order to present how we see really not only our past, but even our present and our future. Now we came close to another mantra, what I tried just briefly to explain that you understand very well in the United States of America, that again, it's not very popular to speak about the tragedy of the Serbs in the past, because now we are, how to say, not all, but as the Serbs, we are accused again of being perpetrators and not victims of what happened in the past. So we didn't have enough time, perhaps even not enough courage, perhaps even not enough determinants to really do something in 2 decades from 2000 until now. We know and we see now in which shape is the world, what's going on, that the older paradigm and is now about to be changed. And now to find the ground on which to build the same national identity, even in this respect, how to say, is very narrow. But I believe, I really believe, as Professor Latinovic said, they, Republika Srpska, they did more, but for obvious purposes, because they fought the war now, and the Republika Srpska came out of the war, they understood better what should be done. Here in Serbia, it's still shaky. I don't think that some people in the government, some political layers, they don't understand what should be done. But we are under pressure, as I said, pressure of the unfinished past and even unbegun future. And so very difficult to organize all the national corps to do something that is really consistent in that field. My analysis is in the sense phenomenological one, because I can't give you the data what has been done. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of positive changes in books of history and so on. There are even these, so to say, national or the culture of memory. The culture of memory, you see that our government is striving lastly really to reestablish our relation to the past, even to our medieval past. But you see at the same time how some people react to it, even in Serbia, as it's being totally medieval, not having any relation to the modern world and so on. We are fighting still a very difficult fight. And so I only believe that as always in history, at the end, we will be on the right side of history, and that we will be on the right side of our genuine identity. Although a lot of forces are still working now against that. These are my explanation. We are not happy with how here is treated still this, I could say at the same time, reality and truth about genocide in Croatia for different reasons, and explain some of them. Excuse me, it's been too long, but it's a subject that is bothering us all the time.
Thank you, Dr. Tanaskovic. It was my pleasure to listen to your answer.
An excellent analysis. I really have nothing to add. An excellent analysis by Professor Tanaskovic.
If you don't have nothing to add, I'm very happy. So as historian, I'm not historian, but well.
Your way of thinking is much better than of many historians that I know. So thank you.
Well, it's not very often that your colleagues recognize that to philologists.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Tanaskovic. Anyone else would like to make a comment or ask something? Okay. As I can see, Professor Latinovic just shared a link for the, I think, scientific paper that he and his colleague, Professor Nikola Žegović did recently. Very good one and important.
That's an article I suggest if you find some free time to read it. That was the massive crime against Serbs perpetrated, committed in only one day in these villages near Banja Luka. So if you have some free time, I suggest that you read it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Latinovic. I also shared with you a link from our website in which you can find all materials for our activity this year, memorial activity. So basically this year we are launching activities that directly concerns each of us whose relatives or compatriots suffered in some way during this genocide. The visual identity of commemoration activity this year is blue armband with the camp number from one of the victims of the Jasenovac camp. You can see it also on the background of my picture. The blue armband represents a testimony that about 2 million Serbs in the independent state of Croatia were criminalized and targeted for destruction during this genocide. At the same time, our testimony on these events shows that we have survived and won, and that we are continuing our historical work or march towards freedom and life. We invite you all on April 22 this year to post on one of your social media profiles photo of yourself wearing a blue armband and holding a paper with the caption "I bear witness." In addition, you can enclose a fact sheet which we provide on our website in order to offer an explanation of what and why we are testifying to all those interested. In this way, we will fulfill the vow, but also the civilization obligation, and send the message that each new generation has a new opportunity and a responsibility to make the world around them a better place. Among other things, by witnessing about the evil that happened on us and by the constant struggle for the value system we belong to. So, I would like to, at the end, to thank our eminent professors, Tanaskovic and Latinovic, our friends and partners who helped us to hold this event, like Obrat Kesic, Zina Rajic, Miloš Rastovic, Dragan Bujošević, Dušica Protić, Antonije Kovačević, and many others who helped us, as well as my colleagues Predrag Lozo and Neven Dženadija. So, also, I would like to thank all of you who were present today on this conference and to invite you once more to participate on commemoration activity on April 2022. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon on a similar conference. That's all.